مهندس نظام الهيد اوف ديجيتال انوفيشن في البنك التجاري الدولي. هقول لكم ايه موضوع الانوفيشن ده، انا برضه بحاول افكر فيه كتير احنا بنعمل ايه، لكن مبدئيا برحب بيكم واتمنى ان انتم تكونوا استمتعتوا بالسيشن الاولانيه والسيشن الثانيه، وهنحاول السيشن الثالثه دي تكون مور فوكس على ادوات تنفيذيه اكتر، على ترندز، على ريكومنديشن معينه، بحيث يكون في استفاده من الاطر التنظيميه والتشريعيه اللي تم طرحها في الجلسه الاولى والجلسه الثانيه. احنا محظوظين ان في نوع من التنوع في السبيكرز معانا ديفيد من سيتي بانك هيتبنى وجهه نظر الجفرمنت والشركات الكبيره ازاي ان هي تقوم بدور مهم في عمليات الكاش مانجمنت وعمليات التريد، وفي نفس الوقت ممكن تدفع خدمات معينه ازاي للانتر سيجمنت بحيث ان هم يبقوا انكلودد زي الميرشنت الصغيرين، زي ناس بيستلموا مرتبات او بيستلموا بنفيتس من خلال الادوات الالكترونيه. وعندنا على الناحيه الثانيه رامي تركي المانجنج دايركتور بتاع برايت كابيتال هيتبنى وجهه نظر الديسربتورز، هيتبنى وجهه نظر الستارت ابس الفينتكس اللي هم موجودين دلوقتي في حوالينا وفي العالم كله، وبيحصل نوع من النمو شديد جدا جدا للبروفايلز بتاعتهم في كل انحاء العالم، ونتمنى مصر تكون على الطريق ده كمان، بحيث ان هو هيقول لنا ليتست ترند بتحصل في العالم في ناحيه البيمنت، ازاي الناس ممكن تعمل عمليات الكترونيه بره النظام المصرفي بشكل او باخر. هل ده ثريت؟ هل ده هيبقى تهديد على البنوك؟ هل البنوك لازم تاخد اكشن في الاتجاه دوت؟ هل البنوك لازم تبقى عندها مور اوف اكشنز ناحيه استيعاب اللي بيحصل ده والتعامل معاه بشكل اكثر واقعيه؟ وزي ما حضراتكم عارفين، زي ما انا قلت، ان انا يعني هتمنى وجهه نظر البنوك بحيث ان احنا نكون مقدمين ليكم رؤيه متكامله من اكثر من طرف. فهنبتدي allow me to introduce our speaker this session, Mr. David. He is an executive manager for the trade and cash management in Citibank, and we have a lot of global and regional exposures. He's going to share with us a sort of a framework about Citibank view and how to drive the cash management transaction, trade transactions, and also how to attract on that segment either the micro or small enterprise to join the eco model of the financial service.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much. I really appreciate the time today, and thank you so much for the invitation, allowing us to present. So it's not many times you have a banker and a fintech provider on the same stage, so I promise we'll behave and we'll have good conversations. I think one of the key themes you'll hear from me is collaboration. Okay, everything you've heard this morning can only be achieved if there's collaboration across the marketplace, and I think that's a key thing. Also, I often use the word journey, that we are starting on a journey, but the journey in this respect has already started. Okay, I think we are significantly into the journey towards digitization, cashless, e-commerce, fintech, whatever you want to call it. So today, I've got three areas that I'm going to focus on. I'm going to try and keep this to 20 very focused slides. The first part is, I think, to reinforce a lot of the messaging this morning that you've heard. Why is this relevant? What are the opportunities? Why do we all have to sit back and own these issues and try and transform the current way of payments and how cash is recycled within an economy? And I'll talk about that. I then want to share with you some work that Citibank has been doing for the last 4 years with Imperial College in London, It's called the City Digital Index. And there we benchmark 90 countries globally on where we believe and what the market believes those countries are placed from a number of I think 4 key areas, and I'll talk about those. And then just a couple of examples of where technology is driving efficiency with payments. Okay. Now, from my perspective, you know, I work with corporates and the public sector. We're not working from a retail consumer basis, but I actually see, and we see at Citibank, we are helping provide that infrastructure for payments to be made efficiently. And if payments are made efficiently, then the whole economy benefits as a result of improved working capital and just, you know, certainty of payments. And I heard that loudly this morning. Certainty of payments. How can SMEs benefit from being paid on time with information and if, infrastructures where there are no accounts? So what you'll hear is a lot around sort of the financial inclusion, money and money laundering, efficiency, tax, regulations, payment certainty. But as I say, across this space, collaboration is critical. And also one of the areas that we talk about is whether it's consumer to business, business to government, government to business, business to business. Hopefully what you'll hear is very relevant across all of those segments. I do like using quotes, and I think this is a very useful quote from an ex-CEO of Starbucks, and I think this reinforces what is happening. And I heard some of the speakers this morning talk about changing business models, and certainly changing business models is what's required. And you'll see this. Consumer behaviour is changing. We heard this morning around culture, around the younger population, around the use of iPhone. Please don't laugh, it's an iPhone 5. I will get a newer model soon, but it still allows me to do digital transactions. But my children and my wife particularly do laugh when I get my iPhone 5. But the cashless, you know, the digital economy is there. And I often would say that our children are already digitized. Okay, they're already digitized. You give a phone to a 2-year-old, they know what to do. And I don't know if it's true, but a story that has gone viral is that in a restaurant, a family were at a table and there was probably a 4-year-old girl sat by the window. Outside was a bird on the table, and against the window she was doing that, trying to enlarge the bird, right? So the younger generation are used to digitization. And I think we all have to think about the types of business models we have to allow us to grow, okay, and to support you know, economic progress, okay. And for a bank like Citi, that's incredibly important around driving economic progress for all participants within the business. I also tried to just think about a word cloud, and there is one apology that in my haste I did miss out, and I don't know how, fintech. How did I miss out fintech? But I did, so I apologise. But fintech is very much in there as well. You will have seen some of these words. Some of those I will concentrate on today. Something like faster payments. And just from a quick show of hands, who is familiar with faster payments and what it actually means? Okay, I'll talk about that. And for me, that is a key component of a cashless society. Now, it does mean some form of bank account, but it could mean a bank payment from a mobile wallet, from a wallet provided by a fintech provider. And I'll come on to what a faster payment really is shortly. APIs, okay, so application program interfaces, how systems talk to each other is becoming important. And I won't go through everything, but these are some of the words that I use regularly when I'm talking to clients, governments, around the region, and indeed globally. So now I know that some of the it's just slightly out of line. I don't know if we can adjust that. Is there anyone? Okay. Hafez, you're now in charge of IT. There we go. That's good.
We will need him
And he's very flexible, and there's a word there, agility. He's very agile as well. And I apologise if you're at the back of the room, some of this won't show. Look, I'm not going through everything, but trends that are driving this transparency and this sort of financial growth, all right, by governments, is the second and the fourth point that are very relevant today. Is that anti-corruption and transparency? Okay, how do you achieve financial inclusion when you want to put systems around it? Okay, how do you really get away from cash if you want to really be transparent, prevent fraud, and anti-money laundering? Okay, so that is a key trend that we engage with our clients on a regular basis. But again, we heard it this morning, the final point, technology. Throughout my career, and last year was 30 years in transaction banking, I've never seen the pace of change happen as fast as it is today. And that is a challenge and opportunity for all of us, because the agility, the cost, the resources are significant. So how do we take advantage of all that technology? And Tariq Tawfiq spoke this morning from the Federation of Egyptian Industries about blockchain. Again, how do we embrace blockchain? We can't do it individually, we have to collaborate. The bank has to come together with the fintech, has to become provided with the government, with consumers to drive that. So I think that helped reinforce what we heard this morning, as I think you'll find at the moment. And then, what is really surprising, when we sit with a government, and that government could be anywhere, it could be any country across the MENA region, could be in North America, could be in Asia. What's very interesting, there are 4 aspects which all relate to payments. The digitisation of payments, it's an agenda of every government and what consumers want. We then have evolution of payment systems, and I'll talk about faster payments and what that is allowing organisations to do. We talk about rise of fintech, and then expansion of financial services. We talked a lot, it's not just about payments, we talked about insurance, you can talk about capital markets, you can talk about financing. All of this is very relevant for digital and sort of a cashless society. And this is where government needs to and will play a role in providing this infrastructure to drive this. I think we're still good. And then just on the top one, payment efficiency. And let me tell you about faster payments. So the UK government 7 years ago launched faster payments. The UK government had an ACH system called BAC, so a 3-day cycle payment. It also had RTGS, so the high value transaction, cleared sometime during the day before 4 o'clock. They introduced faster payments. Faster payments is 24/7, and within 15 seconds, a payment is made. So the benefit I have a son who follows a football team in the UK. I won't tell you that team because you'll probably laugh. It's not Liverpool, so he's not following Mohamed Salah. Okay, it's another team, and he might need some money. I can go onto my mobile phone, make a payment from my bank. He can be withdrawing that cash within 15 seconds. What is that achieving? The first time that, and there was some ridicule in the UK. Why do we need this? Why do we need another payment system? The first time it made sense to me is when eBay and PayPal approached the bank to say, how can we allow trading activity to happen at weekends? Why do we have to rely on a card payment that they settle late or an ACH system? We want our traders to do a trade on a Saturday and deliver goods on a Saturday. Faster payments became incredibly relevant. That if you link information and data, you can have more instantaneous settlement. And that has been a sea change in how things are done from an e-commerce perspective, but is also becoming a very important aspect. And I see huge potential in this market for e-finance and e-fowling. Right? We talk about that a lot, Hafez, about how that type of system can take place. Now, I'm not aware that the central bank has made any announcements on faster payments in Egypt. However, Bahrain launched last year. The UAE have now launched a paper around launching faster payments in 2018. Turkey have also issued a paper and I think there are 40 countries globally that now have some form of faster payment. So I raised that. That is something that I think you need to think about, be aware of, because it will help really revolutionise the business. And then I think my last point, I think you just scroll it down. And when I talked about collaboration, I think this is a role that government and the sort of federations can play in terms of how they lobby to get change. And it's the top thing. I wouldn't expect you to be aware of PSD2. It is a European-wide payments initiative, which is effectively ensuring that the banks and third-party providers, like the fintechs, are working together. The UK has taken this on board, and now 9 banks are working together to deliver standards that allow open banking, APIs, open communication between a fintech and a bank. Again, that will significantly help in terms of transaction processing for not just a corporation, but for a consumer. A consumer who wants a refund on an airline ticket will not have to wait 2 weeks for a credit card refund. It could be more instantaneous. These are some of the conversations we're already having with some of the regional airlines in this region about how they leverage those standards and make the customer experience better. Because again, banks have to compete with fintech. And fintech, if they make the process easy, the banks will also have to ensure that they make the process easy. And then I couldn't just talk about this without framing e-commerce. E-commerce has often been viewed as a sort of North America, Western Europe, Asia issue, okay, an opportunity. We are seeing significant growth and opportunity across both MENA and Turkey from here. You know, Egypt apparently is a $1.4 billion business at the moment, okay? So large, but not massive. Across the region, in the next 3 years, the forecasts are the whole region to go from 15 billion to 100 billion. Now, that's a forecast. We'll see if that takes place. But I think with the technology that is happening, we recently saw Amazon buy the UAE e-marketplace Souk. We're seeing some of the Chinese come into the region, Pakistan and other markets, Alibaba coming in. That will continue. And without a doubt, what really surprised me in the UAE is that prior to the recent Amazon Souk acquisition, 90% of e-commerce transactions were cash on delivery. All right? You know, you can do everything on the phone, internet, but the last mile, someone has to pay cash. And it took a company like Aramex or one of the other distributors, they would have to deliver 5 times before they actually got paid. Very inefficient. So at Citi, and I know from speaking to colleagues at other banks, we see this as an opportunity, which is also for consumers. How do you ensure, how does the government ensure that consumers can buy things at a good value? There has to be payment infrastructure. So let's just talk about the payment infrastructure. And this leads on then to the Citi Digital Money Index. Citi talks about 4 key pillars, and these are on the left-hand side. How the government and the market supports the payments. What is the technology that's available? Then what are the solutions that are available? And I've heard a lot about mobile wallets, 13 million wallets being available, but are they really available to people? And is the technology there? And then interestingly, it's the culture. Propensity to adopt, a very English word, but what is the culture to enable adoption? Okay? And this is what's really happening in the sort of transaction banking space. And Egypt is quite a long way along this journey. Okay? The use of debit cards, the real-time gross settlement system. Direct debits has been introduced. Okay? Much more used in Western Europe, but direct debits are starting to be used. To also start making payments virtually via cards is also a very important area. So this whole journey is something that I think your banks and a bank like Citibank is working with governments and our clients to ensure they're ready to adopt. And in some markets, we actually help the central banks in terms of providing what is best practice from going and launching new clearing schemes. Okay. So again, I wanted to add to this morning's conversation to reinforce why this is important and what some of the opportunities are. Okay, now just onto the digital money index. If you Google City Digital, this will come up. Okay, so this is available for everyone. It's totally free. It's in the public domain. And we're very proud of doing this, and we've been doing it for the last 4 years, again with our partners at Imperial College, to really try and understand and benchmark where countries are. So the example we're going to use, and I heard this morning, was India. Okay, and India, from our data, has made significant progress in recent years. Their score has improved over 10% in recent years. And why is this? Again, I'll just work around, so go down clockwise. The government, so progressive regulatory environment. The government has enabled, okay, a lot of this change. The very public withdrawal of some of the cash in circulation prompted the move towards the digital economy. Okay? It hasn't totally achieved that, but it has helped focus on that.
So they are disrupting the presentation.
Well, this is agility in action, flexibility. Okay, so the regulation, and again that reinforces what India has been doing. In the top right, they've launched new payment platforms. And again, it is that technology and financial infrastructure that's important. We can have the best iPhone in the world or the best computer, but if there is not the technology to move a payment from a consumer, whether it be a mobile wallet or a bank account, to the end beneficiary, then that's not good. They've also pushed for digital solutions. So this phrase here is called UPI, which is the Unified Payment System. And this is again faster payments in India. And so 32 banks have set up and they've linked third-party wallets to this. So again, the instant transfer of cash. No floats, no delays. People are getting their money either in a bank account or a mobile wallet or a third-party wallet. Full transparency. And that is what is needed. And that's the biggest move, 14, while they moved up the index in India, 14% improvement year on year. So significant involvement. But it means the banks have to come together. It means the banks have to invest significant money in terms of a regulatory update. And then the consumers. How are the consumers doing? And the wallets have grown twofold to 315 million. Okay. Now, yes, the population in India is over 1 billion, but to double the number of wallets in a year is just significant. And that's the sort of momentum that a country like Egypt needs, other countries around the cluster, whether it be UAE, it could be any country across the MENA region needs it. So a good example. And then just to build on India, and again I apologise, these are slightly smaller, we can make this available to participants to look at in their leisure. So I will have to talk you through this. But the top left, you've got the US and Europe. The unbanked is not just a developing emerging market challenge. Okay, there are 65 million Americans, okay, that also don't have bank accounts. Okay, 93 across Europe. Right, so it is a common problem. And what India have done, and this talks you through the life cycle, and again this reinforces my previous page in the journey that they took to achieve a lot of this mobile technology. So the launch of new payment infrastructure, regulations, they withdrew cash, okay, the very public withdrawal of the rupee note. They forced regulations. They've enabled fintech, okay? and they've ensured that the banks are ready, those 32 banks, to deliver, infrastructure. So, and then the final bottom right, some of the savings from achieving this runs into billions. Okay, that if banks, governments, corporations can effectively serve the unbanked or the underbanked, okay, those that want to have a bank account but can't get access to a bank account, the benefits run into the billions. Okay, significant cost saving. So where is Egypt? And I apologise, I hope I escaped this room, okay, after this, but Egypt is currently ranked in the third quartile, okay, at the bottom of the third quartile. Okay, and you may disagree or agree, but that is the current ranking. So when we look at government and market support, my eyes are, so it is ranked 65th out of the population of 90. From a technology and financial infrastructure, it's 45th, 46th. Digital money solutions, this is the area that is seen by the index as needing the furthest improvement, at 77 out of 90. And culturally, there is still some way to go with only 73, being ranked 73. Again, we can have this debate, but any benchmarking is direction, okay? But hopefully that reinforces. And then what I did, just to give you line of sight, was just to take out 5 other countries, 4 countries, and 5 including Egypt. So on the top right, you'll see where Egypt is, and the lower number is the better, okay? And you'll see where Egypt is ranked compared to a market like the United Arab Emirates. The UAE has a government initiative to eliminate paper from government by 2020. It has 20 departments that are now looking to launch blockchain. Okay, it has, again, just when you look to benchmark, I think the UAE is held out there as a country that is really trying to embrace the digital economy. And then it was Morocco doing other things, and Saudi Arabia, and also India. So again, this is just a picture in time. It shouldn't be seen as critical, and I think it reinforces the opportunity that Egypt has. And again, if we think about the lens of government market support, technology, digital money solutions, so we need fintech and banks to build digital money solutions, and then culturally, how do we change the culture? How do we train awareness? How do we make the whole economy aware of the opportunities that can help drive that growth? How long time? 5 minutes. Okay, and that's good. So then I just wanted to share with you some of the payment trends that will enable this to happen. They're already here, okay? But these things do not have to be built in many markets. And I think it's a case of Egypt, with the central bank and the banks coming together and deciding on the short to medium term priorities in terms of what needs to be launched. So, cards I talked about. I was last in Cairo towards the end of last year, and talking about commercial cards, how organisations can pay. And I think that's the card industry. It needs to be more transparent, needs to look at the costs, and I think there's an opportunity for cards. And cards do facilitate payments. Okay? They can be a great facilitator for payments. Not just for consumers, but also for business to business, and also for government to business. We know that e-commerce is rising. With Hafiz's support in the front row here, the City Egypt team have done a lot of work for me regionally, and also for our colleagues globally in the City, to benchmark where Egypt is from an e-commerce. Who are the players, who are the providers, what is likely to happen, and what are the needs of clients in e-commerce. Consumer payments and the choice of consumer payments are important. Payment tokens, person-to-person payments via mobile. Right? These are some of the trends that are happening. And then the POS, the use of the card-based systems, consumer payments, governments, and I think the government also, how they make social security, tax, how they accept tax payments. that acts as a catalyst for organisations to copy. Okay? And how do you make these faster payments? And I really believe that some form of faster payment infrastructure is something that the country and the broader region will need to be looking at. And then, of course, Bitcoin and the digital currencies, that could be a whole different subject, but they're being very disruptive. They are changing the way business is being performed. And as a result, we have to think more and more about blockchain and how we can support that. So again, payments are becoming faster and real time. And again, it doesn't have to be a bank account. It can be a mobile wallet. Whether it's business to business, business to consumer, consumer to business, or person to person, the infrastructure is rapidly developing to allow real-time payments. And as a key message that I wanted to leave you with. And then just an example. And for those that are interested, I have a publication. Please drop me an email, I can send it to you, it's in a PDF. And we call it Request to Pay, the emergence of Request to Pay. And what is driving this is API, okay, the fact that systems to systems can talk, and how, when you follow this process, whatever you're buying, if you go onto that, you then, through an API, get an acknowledgement, perhaps through an SMS, through a text, you accept that, you put in a code, it then goes back to an API, and then payment is instantly made, and the API also updates that the payment has been fulfilled and there's settlement between both parties. All of that now can happen within seconds. And what we're seeing, and I think something like eFowry has that potential to drive this, we're seeing it in markets like Bahrain, the UAE with Payment Gateway, is how do you connect the banks, how do you connect the wallets, and how can you have that instantaneous payment? And all of that is going to drive working capital, it's going to drive friction out of the system, but again, it can only work if there's collaboration, okay? And it really brings together the whole of e-commerce, retail, and payments. And in this publication, there's a lovely quote from the Hong Kong Monetary Authority. What effectively they've done is, with 13 e-wallets, okay, they've linked that with a new faster payment scheme which is coming online in September 2018, and it will allow banks, e-wallet operators, and fintech and technology companies to work together in a new payment ecosystem. Extremely powerful. Okay, gone are the days of payment delays. This is going to drive out checks, it drives out cash, and it drives instantaneous payments, which improves the economy. And we talked about that at the start. It's the financial benefit on timely payments and certainty of payment for an individual, for an SME who wants to buy a new bit of kit is phenomenal. Okay? And I think this is going to be a transformation for the industry. And then I just wanted to finish on one case study which we're very proud of at City, and this is blockchain in action. And it is, yes, with a very large company. We're very proud of this. This is where we went live first with a fintech company that are working with us, and the bank and a client. And effectively, we have linked City's internal systems with a client-enabled blockchain platform and APIs to enable almost instantaneous financial settlement on trading transactions. Okay? So this model can be replicated, can be taken elsewhere, and again, I'm very happy to send the background and the press release on that. So that was, I think the 20 minutes. I promised I would keep to that. I'm not going to go. There's some case studies, and we can make this available to the organisation. And I think I would end on three points on how we will be successful together on this. I think the technology ecosystem is there. Yeah, we heard Microsoft in one of the last sessions talk. That technology is there. Okay. People have access to computers. They have access to internet. They have access to digital phones and media. The successful areas I try to think of in 3 areas are, again, I'll repeat, the collaboration, the regulation, right, from the government and the financial authorities, and then the commitment. And the commitment from everyone on this table and everyone in this room to ultimately make it happen. So that's my 20 minutes. I'm happy to open for questions. A lot of information. Very happy to share the digital index, the presentation, and some of the publications post this event. But please.
Yeah, we will leave the questions till before the end of the session. But let me ask you a couple of questions and then allow me to give a small brief to the audience in Arabic. You mentioned that one of the very efficient things is the fast payment, so we can be able to trade 24/7.
Yeah.
Now, considering the Egypt context, yes, we do have immaturity when it comes to availing digital payment tools like cards, wallets. But on the other hand, this is accelerating something like the e-commerce, where people, they can, like you mentioned, they can go to the websites, and this is currently happening. We are seeing a lot of e-commerce providers are pop up in the market significantly in the last 2 years, and they don't have this issue of selling their goods during weekend because they are receiving cash. Yes, definitely, they will have the issue of settling this cash and putting this cash into their accounts. But for me as a customer, this is something transparent. I don't feel it. For me, I'm getting the benefit I want to get. And this also will lead me to another questions or another comments about what will drive the inclusion forward. When you compare what is happening in India and the fact that they built this India Stack infrastructure where they did significant moves toward this digitalization. However, and I was just luckily in India last month, I'm not feeling the impact of such digitalization on the citizen yet. Still, we are talking about very low capita index in India comparing to Egypt, for example. And so my point of view that the context of the market, the dynamics of the market will drive the way we are adopting. What's your comments on that?
Look, absolutely, I totally agree with that. And there is no one size. There's no one solution for any market. I think we have to be aware of the culture and the practice in certain markets, without a shadow of a doubt. And for me, cash and check it is not going anywhere. In fact, we still have to invest in solutions, and it's incredible, that will provide e-commerce solutions to cash. Okay, so cash deposit machines, as an example, because it's not going to happen. But I think the analogy I would draw is, if you look at the US has been a very strong check country, okay? And the check lockbox, okay, sending checks to a PO box, was born in the United States. Now, whilst checks have been decreasing, okay, it's still of an increasing amount of transactions, and so banks still have to provide check lockbox solutions, okay, because checks are still not going to work. However, transactions are increasing. So for me, it's a question of demographics. There will be a tipping point over the next 5 to 10 years where, you know, those that are teenagers, 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, we're going to be taking over more of the transactions that are, you know, they'll be in the 40, 50-year category over the next 10, 15, 20 years, and it'll be that natural tipping point. So it's how does a country, an economy prepare for that? And I think we have to be prepared for running in parallel, having 2 applications. You know, cash is still not going away, but doing nothing is not an option, unfortunately, and that's why it's a cost. It is a cost for banks, it's a cost for government, it's a cost for consumers. But unless we start building that infrastructure now, you can't build a virtuous and improvement circle, because people won't see the benefit. And that is needed to change consumer behaviour. There has to be a lot of training. There has to be a lot of awareness. There has to be some benefits. Why change from cash? Perhaps companies need to look at, well, if I move out cash and I go digital, I have a cost saving. Can I pass that cost saving on to the consumer? These are some of the decisions that combined we have to make. Okay, so it's not easy. That's why my third point around commitment is it's not easy. Technology sounds great, but there's a commitment. And I think we're seeing that in India. It sounds great, and it's a large population, so the percentages, even of a small usage, are quite high. Right? So it's a big population. But I think the pace of change, the e-commerce activity that is happening in a market like India is seeing a lot of inward investment from fintech companies. Okay, not just on payments, but on lending. Okay, on investments, on insurance. And I think for you to attract that sort of investment, you've got to have the infrastructure. So I think it's something that needs to be invested in. There may not be an immediate benefit, but it's something that's got to happen.
Thank you. It was very insightful, and we'll continue the questions at the end of the sessions. This allow me to give an executive briefing. So, ديفيد كان بيتكلم على ليه الحكومات بيبقى عندها توجه كبير نحو عمليه الميكنه للمدفوعات وعمليه الشمول المالي والى اخره. الاهداف الرئيسيه واضحه جدا. اول هدف رئيسي هو محاربه الفساد والشفافيه. كل ما بنعمل اوتوميشن، كل ما بيبقى فيه نوع من معرفه مصادر المدفوعات، سواء اللي بيدفع او اللي بيستقبل الفلوس، كل ما بيبقى فيه نوع من الشفافيه اكتر ومحاربه الفساد، وبالتالي المجتمع بيستفيد. الحاجه اللي بنتكلم عليها الثانيه كان بيتكلم على دقه المعلومات اللي في عمليه المدفوعات نفسها، ازاي تبقى دقيقه بحيث ان هي بتؤدي الى اتخاذ قرارات تصحيحيه طول الوقت، وازاي كمان تبقى سريعه. هو اتكلم على فكره ان النهارده الشركات اللي بتعمل الاي كوميرس، الشركات اللي هي بتحط منتجات على الويب سايتس وبتتيح العميل ان هو يشتريها من ما يطلق عليه المتجر الافتراضي، ان هو يشتري من بيته اللي هو عاوزه. قال ان كان في ضغط كبير في الاسواق الغربيه وفي امريكا وفي اوروبا على فكره ان هم ما فيش سيستم في البلاد في انجلترا في امريكا بيقدر يعمل عمليات التسويه بشكل لحظي. عمليات التسويه بشكل لحظي عاده بتتم على يا اما على 3 ايام يا اما في خلال يومين عمل، وبالتالي كان في نوع من التباطؤ في ان هم يقدروا يحصلوا على الفلوس ويبتدوا يحطوها تاني جوه الانظمه بتاعتهم اللي بيسموها الفاست كاش سايكل. فظهر ما يطلق عليه عمليات او البلاتفورم الفاست بين، ان هي يكون في حاجه شغاله 24 ساعه في ال7 ايام، قادره تعمل عمليات تسويه لحظيه، قادره ان هي تعمل ترجع الفلوس بتاعه التجار او ترجع الفلوس بتاعه الاي كوميرس بروفايدرز للحسابات. وبعدين نتكلم على فكره الديجيتال ماني، النقود الالكترونيه، وازاي هيكون ليها تاثير في المجتمع. هيكون ليها تاثير في المجتمع مش هيتم من طرف واحد، بمعنى مش هيتم من ان احنا نعمل نقود الكترونيه للافراد بس. زي ما احنا عندنا هنا في مصر الارقام متفاوته، احنا عندنا 9 مليون محفظه الكترونيه او اكثر، لكن هو اشار لنقطه مهمه، كام واحد من المحافظ الالكترونيه مستعمله؟ ليه هي مش مستعمله؟ مش مستعمله لان احنا بنبص على نص الحاجه، نص السايكل. بندي واحد افراد بنديهم نقود الكترونيه، لكن ما بنديهمش وسيله ان هم يبتدوا يدفعوا بالنقود الالكترونيه دي عند التجار، وما بنديش وسيله للتاجر ان هو يقدر يستخدم النقود الالكترونيه ان هو يشتري فيها بضائع من المين سبلايرز بتاعته. فما ينفعش ان احنا نعمل جزء من الميكنه على مستوى الافراد وما يتمش الميكنه دي على مستوى بيسموها ذا هول فاليو تشين، اللي هي الاند تو اند، اللي هي الكاستمر سي citizen to business اللي هو merchant والbusiness to business اللي هو enterprise. واتكلم على ان طبعا سيتي بانك بيعتمدوا كتير دلوقتي على ان هم يعملوا اكسبيرمنتيشن لعمليات الليتست ترند في الديجيتال سوليوشن زي البلوك تشين، ان هم عندهم لابس وعندهم طريقه بيقدروا يتعاملوا فيها مع الشركات الستارت ابس الصغيره بحيث ان هم يستفيدوا من الاكتيفيتيز بتاعت الستارت ابس ويبتدوا يعملوا الجفرنس موديل المناسب، يعني يعملوا جزء من الحوكمه. الناس كلها بتقول البلوك تشين ده خطر والبيتكوين واخره، لكن زي ما برضه كان طرح في الجلسه الاولانيه البلوك تشين مش خطر كتكنولوجي، البلوك تشين كتكنولوجي اكثر من رائعه، انما انت بتستخدمها في اي تطبيق وبتحول التطبيق ده ازاي. يعني انا حاولت كده ادي ملخص سريع للي ديفيد قاله، وهنقل المايك لرامي هيبتدي بقى يطرح لنا وجهه نظر مختلفه عن ديفيد.
شكرا يا محمد، متشكر عليكم. Thank you David for the great presentation. Bill Gates مرة قال إنه banking is important but banks aren't. هو شايف إنه العمليات اللي بتقوم في البنوك هي عمليات مهمة للكونسيومر، بس البنك في حد ذاته شيء مش مهم. إلى حد كبير أنا بتفق مع حاجة بسيطة جدا. Financial institutions and banks by default are technology companies. Okay? They rely on innovation every single morning. فكرة ال LC لما طلعت من سنين كتيرة كانت an innovative idea. فكرة ال ACH لما طلعت كانت an innovative idea. فكرة credit card مثلا لما طلعت كانت an innovative idea. However, technology can actually invest in technology. But what happened 10 years back? Everyone 10 years back, and all of us as bankers, anyone here in this room who ever taken credit course, they taught us, oh, okay, we have to be compliant with Basel 1, we have to be compliant with Basel 2, we have to be compliant with Basel 3. The risk team is always the nightmare of any business people in the bank. What happened in 2008? Simply, the entire system crashed. The consumers start feeling that, okay, these people, the very cool bankers in suits, aren't quite trustworthy. So the crowd are taking the step further. They want to create their own needs. They're going to do it their way, not the bank's way. So what happened now that technology vendors are starting catering for consumers, direct consumers. So basically now we're going to find the cool mobile apps on everyone's here telephone, and we're starting to transact through these phones. What's happening now, are you aware of the concept of the GAFA banks? GAFA banks is basically, GAFA is an abbreviation for the Google, Amazon, Facebook, and Apple. Every single institution of these ones are technology companies basically, except for Amazon is a big retailer. But they found the need that they're transacting with consumers every single morning. Facebook has a client base of 1.7 billion individuals, which is more than the population of China. Every single person in this population has a need to transact, has a need to pay. So these institutions are trying to offer their services a more convenient way and a more appealing way to their needs. Faster, appealing, service-friendly. They don't need to go to the bank. They don't need to go to deal with a teller. They don't need to queue in a bank for 2 hours just to pay something. So these banks or non-financial service providers are starting getting into the financial services world. They're creating their own banks. What we have seen in David's presentation here is a clear example that banks are starting to understand the need to become more innovative. They need to understand the fact to deal with fintechs and alike, to enable the better reach of their products. Let's have a fun fact from Egypt. What's the biggest bank in Egypt? How many branches do they have? 450? With how many ATM machines? 3,000? They will never beat 23 million smartphones out there in the market. It can't happen. So the fact that banks, till the moment, are still investing in opening new branches, are still investing in hiring more tellers, are still investing in bringing more customer services just to open bank accounts or opening or fill in credit card applications, it's just a waste of value. You can't do all that on technology. You don't need to go to a bank and sit with a human being to do your own KYC. And he actually doesn't do the KYC because who actually do the KYC is the compliance officer sitting in the back end. You don't see them. So the person or the gentleman sitting in the bank has to function, just looking into the ID and looking at your face, making sure that you are the same person, and taking the signed documents and giving it to the compliance officer. For any reason, that is a waste of value. That's a waste of time. For the user and for the bank itself. Another fun fact about the Egyptian population. 35% of the Egyptian population is between the age of 15 to 30. This age bracket is the most tech savvy in the entire population. They don't want to stay in line to do something. They expect a service from their bank as fast as Facebook. They expect a service from the bank as fast as Amazon or as fast as Microsoft or Google Pay. But banks do not offer these services. The wonderful idea that, and I would like to applaud to David, that he said that it's more about collaboration rather than competition. A lot of banks here still, when I talk to certain banks here in the room, I told them when I start talking about financial technology, they usually link me with their IT people. And we come from two different worlds. No, guys, it's not an IT solution, it's not an IT infrastructure, it's a business thing. So we have to talk about enabling business, we have to talk about reaching out to people, we have to talk about how to bring in more users using technology rather than building our own infrastructure. I'm not a tech vendor myself. I'm not selling a white label product to the bank so they can do that. Yes, some fintechs are doing that, but that's not the core of fintech. Banks aren't the only ones who has to be disrupted. We're talking about insurance companies. For Egypt, the insurance world is really based on cash for a weird reason. If you want to use your health insurance, half of the population is not covered by health insurance because health insurance companies favor going to businesses to insure their employees. But how about people who are not into businesses or coming to smaller tickets? They don't have the right to become insured, although they have the value, they have the money to pay for insurance, and they have the need to pay for insurance. That's a market does not have because the resources of big insurance companies are not interested in wasting resources and time into getting into individual companies worth of 3 people or 4 people. Fun fact, 98% of Egyptian establishments employ 10 or less individuals. So tell me how many banks of you can open a payroll account or a payroll service for these establishments? How can you cross-sell through that? So the need for aggregators are becoming to arise. The need for floating has disrupted the market. That you don't need to go to the utility company to pay your bill. I can do it in the kiosk next door. But still, the money is still in cash with the kiosk, and I didn't give any solution for the cash collection from this person. Another fun fact, we have 9 million mobile wallets with a utilization rate of 3%. Continuing on the idea of Mohammed here, that we do not have use cases for that. So fintechs come here in order to create better solutions for banks, to cater for a different segment, or even the existing segment, but with a different need. You don't need to pay everything in cash. So if I provide you with a cool application on your mobile that would allow you to pay something somewhere, that would always be a better thing. Mr. Hisham Okasha in the last session said that a POS machine is quite an expensive piece of machine just to put it everywhere, right? It's worth, I don't know, 15,000 pounds, something like that. Huh? So it's basically very expensive. So we came up with ideas of QR code payments, we came with MPOS, we came with different solutions in order to bring in or to enable the digital payments for micro retailers. Another piece for micro retailers, that why do I expect a simple grocery to digitize its payments? This guy's margin is no more than 3 to 4%. If I went there and tell them, okay, you have to pay me 2% or 2.5% in order to digitize your payments, they're going to tell me just one off. I'm not sacrificing my margin just to digitize the payments. And a lot of places in the world, payment processors like Visa and MasterCard starting giving or reducing the intercharge for certain segments in the market, like for groceries, like for pharmacy, the actual needs where people actually transact every single morning. In the last session as well, the gentleman mentioned the good old lady who's selling the onions or whatever the product she's selling, and we expect her to digitize this payment. Yes, I do expect her to digitize her payment for a very simple reason, because wasting an entire business day going to the bank or the post office and queuing up, waiting in line just to pay £100 per month, that's a waste of revenue for her. So she doesn't want to do that. She wants to stay there, selling her product, and not waste a single hour of foregone revenue. So digitizing her payments will definitely allow her to do better things. So again, fintech is here not to compete, it's more to complement. It's more to provide insurance to the bank that we're providing a better reach to everyone. Private capital, for example, when we started investing into fintech, and that's a fun story I'd like to say to everyone, that I decided to quit my job and start investing in fintech. When I went there, while having the money, I didn't have any interesting fintech companies to invest in. So I was stuck with the money, and with my partner's money, and we decided to think a little bit out of the box. Okay, let's start by creating our own pipeline. Let's start creating ideas that would actually serve the market, that's going to be mature enough in a couple of years, that would be investable on bigger things. That's one thing we're doing with our partners in commercial banks here in the market. We're talking with them, okay, let's start creating actual fintechs that would allow you as financial institutions achieve your own agendas. Let's create the use cases for the unutilized mobile wallets. Let's create the use cases for the unutilized POS machines all over the country. Let's try to create the use cases for spreading medical insurance more efficiently to the Egyptian population. Everyone is excited about that idea, but they have no clue how to do that. So here comes the role of venture capital and accelerators in order to educate and bring in the use cases, bring in and bridging the gap between international experience. I've met a lot of international companies in the last 6 months. Everyone is eyeing Egypt in a weird way. There was a game changer happened in September during the AFI conference. Surprisingly, the Central Bank of Egypt has become quite vibrant on fintech and innovation and financial inclusion. And I bet you that everyone here, any banker in this room, has certain KPIs for financial inclusion. You have to achieve financial inclusion in your bank, and many people don't understand how can we achieve that. Fintech is the tool, or the easiest tool to do that. You can still go open more bank accounts. You can still hire the biggest sales force in order to open bank accounts everywhere. You can still reduce the banking fees for everyone. But that wouldn't create the use cases for anyone to come in. A gentleman in the previous session said, okay, let's change the currency. Yes, it happened in certain countries. It happened in India, it happened in Rwanda maybe. But again, without the use cases, okay, I'll go to deposit my money and then cash it out again and use it somewhere else. So still, if you do not provide the use cases to all of these things, building on different technologies, building on blockchain, building on artificial intelligence, building the APIs. David mentioned the PSD2. It came into effect in the UK this week, actually. And this is an interesting thing. The regulator just told the bank, if the consumer required that you release his information to a third party, you have to do that. Because at the end of the day, it is my information that the bank is keeping. Fun fact, why do I need to do the KYC process in every single bank? If I open a bank account at the CIB, I have to do the KYC. If I have to open a bank account at NBE, I have to do the same exact process. Why can't we share the KYC among ourselves? If I want to go to a capital market, to a brokerage firm to start trading in the stock market, I have also to do this very similar KYC, which is unexpectedly waste of resources and waste of time. I can get a single person to KYC me once and for all. So there's a lot of potential. I'm sure that everyone in this room is starting thinking about, yes, there are a lot of ideas where can we use technology better. But again, banks alone can't achieve it. We're seeing banks coming more into technology companies, and we're seeing technology companies moving more into banks and financial services. Because every one of us has the need for that. And again, it's not about competition, it's about collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Raji. It's a very respectful point of view as well. But let me debate with you on two things. Number one, the confidence, the trust index the citizens or the customer are always giving to the banks versus the fact of that those are non-banking financial service provider, whether they are fintech or some other vendors, they can avail financial service in the market, but they don't have the same level of trust index. What is your point of view about that?
A few years back, we had this interesting phenomenon in the market called ثلاث, right? This is a very basic example saying that people have the cash and have the investment and saving need, and yet they don't want to put it in the bank. Whether it's for the interest rate is very low, they are quite aware that putting your money in the bank with this interest rate, with this inflation level, you're losing value. So they decide to go into different vehicles to start investing in. For Egypt, because it's not a sophisticated market, we only have 3 ways to invest our money. Either put it deposit it in the bank, or put it in the stock exchange, which is a risk for most of the people. They don't understand it, they don't know how to deal with it, or just buying your apartment or real estate. Some people don't have the big tickets for the real estate, they don't have that much money. So they started trusting a person who promised them very high returns by trading into prepaid card and mobile. Right? So the need is still there. It's not the fact that they trust banks more or less. The fact that 85% of the Egyptian adults are still unbanked. That doesn't mean there are poor people. Just go to Al-Azhar Street and see how much cash. Go to any bank branch in Al-Azhar and they will tell you how much cash these people try to deposit. So they have the cash, they are wealthy, and they have their own system between them. They have the peer-to-peer lending among them. It's still offline, but they have that happening. They have the crowdfunding happening offline. They have the Rosca model, the Jama'iyat, still happening. I remember 15 years back when I started my career in banking, in E-Bank, we had this Jama'iyat happening, or the Rosca model, that we just give the instructions to the teller every single month. You just deduct the amount from my salary. That was a little bit digitizing the world, but it's still into a closed loop world. But the need for that is there. So no, I still see that a lot of population, of the Egyptian population, do not trust the Egyptian banks as they should be, because if they do, they would haven't put their money outside the banking system.
The complementary part of my question is related to the fact that in the mid-90s, there was what they call the direct bank model, or the unmanned branch model for the bank was start to happen mainly in Germany, in UK, and in some other country. And at that time, people start talking about the disappear of the brick and mortar model and the disappear of the human. Now we start hearing a terminology of humanizing the technology. We cannot leave the technology to interact with the customer by itself. We start hearing about that Facebook shut down the AI engine because the AI engine start to evolve and they cannot control it. And you are adopting the same argument where that everything can be automated, digitized, you don't need to come for KYC, you can capture your picture, you can open your account without the need of any human. So what's your feedback about that?
I'm a big believer of digitization, but I'm still a bigger believer of empowering humans in doing something that is more valuable. If I can replace a human being doing a very minor job, I will definitely digitize that job. But I have to empower the human being to do something that's more meaningful and more valuable. If you're going to waste the time of the customer service employees in your bank in filling in applications, I think that is still a waste of value. This employee should be doing something much more value and generate more revenue to the institution. The idea that a branch is still a host center for the P&L of the bank is still, for me, a surprising thing. It should be a revenue generating thing. They should be out there bringing in business, big tickets, and leave the paperwork and the small things to be done with technology. I think that would be the best solution.
Great. So مش عارف محتاجين ان انا اعمل ترجمه. انا بتهيألي العربي بتاعي يعني انيل ان هو يترجم بسمعه انجلش احسن. بس عموما هو كان رامي بيتكلم على فكره انا بأيدها جدا، فكره ان احنا النيدز. احنا بنعمل سوليوشن ليه؟ احنا ما بنعملش تكنولوجي سوليوشن لمجرد ان هي تكنولوجي سوليوشن، احنا بنعمل تكنولوجي سوليوشن مبنيه على فكره ان احنا عرفنا نيدز بتاعت حد وابتدينا نتعامل مع نيدز. فالاشاره اللي تم ليها في السيشن الصبح على الست ام محمد بياعة الفكر. انا بايد كلامه جدا ان بياعة الفكر تقدر تستخدم ادوات الكترونيه وتقدر تستخدم مدفوعات رقميه لو تم شرح ليها هي استفيد ايه. هي كان اكيد واحده من الحاجات الايجابيه ان هي لو بتبيع ب 400 جنيه هي ممكن تبيع ب 1000 جنيه لانها هتوسع دايره التعامل اللي بينها وبين الافراد، وهتوسع دايره التعامل اللي بينها وبين الموردين بتوعها، وهيبقى عندها طريقه ان البنوك تتعرف عليها وتقدر تديها ائتمان. الثاني عمره ما هيدي ائتمان لهذه السيده مع احترامي الكامل لمجهوداتها لان احنا ما نعرفش عنها اي معلومات. وانس ان هي تستخدم الادوات الالكترونيه اعتقد ان هيبقى ليها تواجد كبير جوه الانظمه المصرفيه، حتى سواء بنوك او مايكرو فاينانس كمباني او يبتدوا يدوها نوع من الائتمان ويبتدوا كمان يساعدوها على عمليات الادخار. احنا عندنا موديل واضح جدا بسرعه شديده اقدر اقول لكم عليه، موديل حقيقي عشان ما نقعدش نقول ان احنا بنقعد نتكلم في كلام نظري اكتر منه عملي. احنا بنتعامل مع السواقين بتوع كريم من خلال المحفظه الذكيه في CIB. الهدف الرئيسي اللي احنا كنا رايحين بيه ما كناش رايحين نتعامل مع السواقين بتوع كريم، احنا كنا رايحين نتعامل مع شركه كريم بنوفر لهم سوليوشنز زي ديفيد اتكلم عليها، الكاش مانجمنت سوليوشن. احنا بنقول لهم ان انتوا ناس بتستخدموا كاش كتير وبيجي لكم متحصلات كتير، فاحنا هنعمل مجانا العمليه دي. لكن بمرور الوقت ابتدينا نفكر في فكره ان لما يجي سواق من كريم يقدم في الشغل يبتدي يفتح محفظه. ليه يفتح محفظه؟ لان كريم بتدفع نوع من الانسنتيف للسواقين كل اسبوعين، بتدفع له الانسنتيف دي ازاي؟ بتديله شيك. فسواء كريم او سواء اوبر بيركن عربيته اللي هو مصدر رزقه، بدل ما ياخد 3 4 رحلات بيركن عربيته لمده ساعتين 3 ويروح يقف في طابور عشان يبتدي يحصل الشيك ده. فلما احنا قلنا له ان انت مش محتاج تحصل الشيك، وان انت لو فتحت المحفظه وانت بتفتح الابلكيشن هتاخد فلوسك فيها بطريقه سهله جدا، وبعدين وانت ماشي تعدي على سوبر ماركت او تعدي على مكنه الATM وتسحب فلوسك في اي وقت من الليل، الساعه 1 بالليل 2 بالليل، مش لازم تبقى ملتزم بمواعيد البنك. الناس ابتدت تتقبل الامور دي. احنا كنا بنقول هنبايلوت 500 واحد، احنا عندنا 18000 سواق حاليا، 18000 سواق. عدد السواقين اللي كان عندهم حسابات بنكيه 4% من ال 18000. فاحنا بس لمجرد ان انت عرفت تبيع الفاليو بتاعت الحكايه دي. وكمان المفاجاه بالنسبه لنا بالرغم ان المحافظ الالكترونيه دي ما بتديش اي نوع من الانترست، ما بتديش فوائد، احنا شايفين ان في حوالي 23% من المحافظ الفلوس بتفضل فيها. وافتكرنا ان في مشكله وكلمنا، عملنا اوت باوند وكلمنا سالناهم ليه ما بتسحبوش الفلوس، وكانت الاجابه ان هم بيدخروها حتى مع علمهم التام ان هم مش هياخدوا فوائد عليها، ان هم محتاجين يعملوا برامج ادخار على بشكل يسموه نانو سيفنج كونسبت. فالفكره الاساسيه اللي انا بأيد فيها الطرفين، هو ما فيش طرف ضد طرف، هو ما كانش ديبيت، هو كان طرفين بيكملوا بعض. ان انا ازاي ابتدي اشتغل من الجهات الحكوميه وجهات الشركات الكبرى على عمليات المكنه وعمليات المدفوعات، وازاي اخلي شركات زي اللي رامي وانا بسمن الدور اللي هو هيلعبه في الماركت الفتره الجايه، لان ده محتاجينه ان احنا نجد شركات فينشر كابيتال زي شركات رامي قادره ان هي عاوزه مش مجرد ان هي بتشتغل على فكره الاستثمار في شركه هي شايفاها كويسه، لا هي هم ابتدوا من البدايه، هم هيبتدوا كمان ينشئوا الشركات دي مش يستثمروا في الشركات. ودي حاجه احنا محتاجينها في السوق بشكل كبير جدا المرحله الجايه. فده ملخص الحوار. فلو في اي اسئله توجهوها للضيفين العزيزين اتفضلوا.
One question. The e-signature in Egypt, I think, is available for certain government expenses, but still not there because simply not open for the entire market because simply again you're not KYC electronically. The fun fact that the state has already done 90% of the job. Everyone in Egypt, they have their digital national ID, which has your picture and your ID number, entire details linked somewhere. So it's very easy to use biometrics in order to identify yourself in any place. So you actually don't need e-signature any longer can just, by clicking with your with the biometrics of your face over your smartphone, you can do the transaction. You don't need that, if I got your question right.
Well, it's also worth to mention, yes, we do have a national ID platform, but it is not a transactional platform. It is an archiving engine platform. And this is a big difference in what happened in India. In India, they built their Aadhaar system, which is a national digital ID platform, as a transaction where you can interact and send a certain credential and get an answer for authorization that yes, this is the identity of the person standing in front of you. This infrastructure is not in the country. Yes, everyone have a single national number, but it is not in a movement mode. Yes, so this I guess need to be adopted a little bit. Unfortunately, we have to move because we consume all our time. Once again, thank you for your insightful presentation. It was really nice to see such point of view, and Rami also gave us a lot of insights. Thank you.